Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Joanne Quinn. She is the Executive Director of the Autism Project, and it's her first time on the show, so welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
We're going to learn all about the Autism Project today. I think for most people, they hear the word autism and they know they probably think it's a disability, but they're not exactly sure what it is. So maybe sort of a generic definition of autism in general, first of all.
Sure. It just underwent a redefinition. It's autism spectrum disorders. That came out about a year ago. It's a broad spectrum, but they really have three categories of challenges: communication, sensory, and some cognitive differences for the kids. They also have a lot of kids or adults have a unique special interest, one thing in particular that really grabs their attention and occupies a lot of their time.
And it's varying levels of autism, basically?
It is. We, in the autism world, we say if you've seen one person with autism, you've seen one person with autism, because they're all so very different. There's areas of challenges, and for some person it could be nonverbal but very bright, or someone who's very bright is verbal but has no perspective taking, is very inflexible. Challenges with the social communication and social being part of a group can be very hard for them. So it's really, there's the multiple areas, and you put them in an algorithm, and you come up with millions of interpretations of what challenges people can have.
And autism, is that sort of the most current phrase for the affliction, where it's changed over the course of time? Was it always called autism?
It was originally called autism, and then just recently it had expanded. It was autism, Asperger's, PDD, NOS, pervasive developmental disorder, and just recently they redid it and put it all under the autism spectrum disorders, but they put different levels of support and care that you might need with it. And they also, Asperger's is not included in it anymore, and they included right next to it in the DSM, which is the diagnostic manual, that is a social communication disorder. So that's for the kids or adults who just don't get the social cues. You stop for a minute and say, he didn't get that, did he? And are really challenged socially. They've moved it into a category of social communication.
It almost sounds like that's not quite autism, but in actuality it is, right?
Well, I think for them, the biggest impact is in their social communication. They are probably cognitively on par, can keep up academically, but the challenge is really with keeping up socially with their peers and work and school, but they're getting the academic part of it done.
Now, the Autism Project, what is that?
The Autism Project is an organization. We're in about our 16th or 17th year. It actually started out of a school system, out of schools. Teachers and related professionals got together because they were suddenly seeing back in the late 90s, mid-90s, a real increase in the number of kids coming into their early education classrooms up through about 5th, 6th grade with diagnosis of autism or PDD or the new one, Asperger's.
So were the teachers able to actually see this, or was this like a diagnosis that was presented to them saying, hey, you have some kids in your class that have this? Or is it just like sort of a social disability that teachers were spotting, and then the kids were checked out later on and discovered that they had this?
No, they were having kids on their caseload identified with autism, and that's when the real rise in the number of kids started. And so they noticed they had the kids in the classroom, but then they started noticing they were having more and more kids, whether they were diagnosed or they had concerns about, and which was new to them, because when they were being trained in their teaching colleges, they were told, don't worry about autism, this is what it is, but if you have one kid in your career, that'll be a lot, and they'll probably send them out to another school.
That turned out not to be true.
Well, it was true when they were in training, but in the last 20 years, it's really turned into an epidemic. And I use that word because the numbers now are 1 in 68, 1 in 42 boys are diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder, and that's based on children born in 2002. They went through the CDC and came up with those numbers. So in 2020, there will be 1 in 68 graduating or aging out of high school adults in our state with autism. So that's a lot of people.
Are the teachers, when they were initially told you'd be lucky if you have one in your career, that they could handle, but are teachers that are teaching a class properly trained to be able to handle students with autism?
Well, it's getting better. The districts are still, the education system is still one of the primary interventions for individuals with autism, even though it's a medical diagnosis. But the place where parents find they can get the resources or the support for their child is through the school system. Initially, it was challenging for the teachers because they didn't have the education, but over the last 15 years, we've seen a huge increase, both out of the interest of the teachers, a lot of work that my staff has done in educating public school teachers, community school teachers, charter school teachers, how the learning style. It's a very unique learning style, and there are very specific strategies that you can use to educate them, not just handle or support them, but you can educate them, include them. The kids make progress. They can be part of the classroom. Some can't. There's absolutely the need.
Depending on the level, right?
Depending on the level and how they respond to different interventions. But there's a lot of hope. It's a lot of work. It's 24/7, a lot of work, teaching some of the basic skills and breaking them down. But there is a lot of hope, but there's a lot of work to be done in the schools and for the families raising the kids and for the kids. We want them to be the best them they can be.
Yeah.
And so it takes a lot of work.
Do some teachers get frustrated, are not understanding, or maybe not feeling that they are getting through? Or I know, as you say, it's getting better all the time with their ability, and they're learning how to handle it. But some of those kids can be, you said, in the same class with those without any autism. It just depends on the level. So a very fluid dynamic that's going on there between teacher, student, and student with autism, right?
Yeah, I'm a true believer the majority of our kids can be educated in the public classroom in their neighborhood with their brothers and sisters and their friends from their neighborhood.
So no special classes needed?
Well, no, but that's within a public school. There's different levels, but with the supports. But, the teachers, they're working hard. Our schools are working hard to figure out and learn the learning style and how best to support them. And it's a challenge for them because it used to be one child in the classroom. Now you go into a class, there's 25 kids, 11 have IEPs, which means 11 are in special ed at a high level. And of that, maybe there's 4 kids on the spectrum. It's what the public school financing and education financing requires because the numbers of kids, it's expensive. And so we just as a community have to decide how are we going to spend our money. Are we going to improve the supports for the teachers, because the teachers and the paraprofessionals are on the front line with our kids. They need the training, they need the education.
And whenever you hear about budgets being cut, somewhere in the education aspect, that's where you see something get chopped all the time. So, money, budgets has got to be a concern, right?
Everything's about money.
Yeah.
Think about politics, education, everything's about money. And so that's why our job is the Autism Project, my staff, myself, is to do things like this to let people know, invest early, and later on the cost will be a whole lot less.
Preventative, right?
Preventative, and over the course of a lifetime, a person with autism who requires continued support into adulthood is over $3 million. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of that money goes to administrative stuff we have to do. It's not the direct service to the kids, it's administrative, whether it's on the education front, whether it's on the medical front, it's all that paperwork and everything else. So we need to be aware of that. When we're making our cuts and when we're making it harder for us to do our work because we're doing more, we need an MBA in order to help kids with autism these days.
Let's take a break and come back. Why don't you give the website out real quick for people to go and learn?
Sure, it's www.theautismproject.org.
Joanne Quinn's the Executive Director of the Autism Project. We've got a lot more to get to, so we will. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. Today we are chatting with Joanne Quinn, the Executive Director of the Autism Project. Now, in the last segment, when you were quoting those numbers, 1 in 68, what is it the reason that the numbers seem to be going up so much? Is it what's happening in people's lives, their lifestyle? Is it that the identification process is getting better, so they're actually discovering it? Are people going in to get checked out more? What's the reasons?
I'd be a multimillionaire if I knew the answer to that one, Sean.
Even more so if you had a cure, right?
Even more so. Yeah. But, there's multiple doors into autism as heavy genetic factors. There is some improved diagnosis. I will not give that credit for the full increase at all, because I know when I was growing up, I knew one person, my cousin, who had autism, and I didn't know anybody else. And now I can walk through the Shaw's parking lot and go, I'm an English major.
Yeah.
So
But there's got to be, environmental issues, our eating habits these days. I mean, it could really be a myriad of things, just people's lifestyle.
absolutely. There's not only an increase in autism, there's an increase in childhood type 1 diabetes. Allergies. Who knew kids with peanut allergies when we were kids?
Yeah.
Nobody.
And everybody knows somebody who has
Everybody
that too.
knows somebody who has that. Our kids are sicker than they've ever been for multiple reasons. So I do think, as on a personal level, I do think it has to do with the environment, with our eating habits, how our food is prepared out in the field, not in the kitchen. The chemicals. There's chemicals everywhere, and it's got to be having some impact. And that's my personal opinion.
I think
But
you're
there's
right,
also how many people do you know who smoke who never get cancer? We
there's
think,
always that one guy who smoked 3 packs a day, lived to 80. You
Right.
know what I mean? But that's the exception,
and
right?
there's lots of people who've never smoked who die of lung cancer. So,
Right.
we're all born and grow with a certain certain hand. We're all dealt a certain hand of cards, and it's whether or not what comes your way, whether or not you can say no thanks or here you go. So that they're starting to do more environmental testing, environmental research. We really need to look into the biology of autism also. We've done a lot with genetics. We've done a lot with psychology. Enough with that. We need to really get into the
DNA,
cells
right?
and
Get down
figure out what's going on. And we need a lot of people. We need a lot of people looking at all different things so that we can figure this out. When we all work together, it's a whole lot better.
Well, I was going to ask you on the flip side, even though, the numbers are going up, isn't it a natural effect that, research and development would get us closer to being able to treat it in a better way? But I guess that's not the case, huh? Maybe we're identifying it more and can identify it more, but as far as, therapy, treatment, cures, medicine, we're not any closer?
It needs to catch up.
Yeah.
But actually in Rhode Island, we're very lucky. There's a whole consortium put together. It's called RICART, the Rhode Island Consortium for Autism Research and Treatment. It's about a year into, we've been meeting and planning it for about 5 years, but they got funded by the Simons Foundation about a year ago. And the nice thing about that is Rhode Island is 1 million people, and we all live within 20 miles of each other, and we all know each other or are related to each other.
Small
It's
state.
a very small state, and so the consortium has made great headways. We're building a registry where we're trying to get every individual with autism from birth through old age registered so that all the researchers can come to one place and find out where the people are, find out what they need for their research. Policy-wide, we will be able to go up to the General Assembly and say, no, actually, it's this percentage of the state of our people have autism.
Inform
This is the
them,
funding we need.
educate
It's
them.
informed decisions, and then we can, hopefully sooner rather than later, we're going to start looking at the treatment end of it. There is treatment out there. There are strategies as well as medical treatments, educational treatments, nutritional treatments for people, and we need to build on that. We need to catch up. We need more money. We are the lowest, one of the lowest, if not the lowest funded disability in terms of research for preventative as well as for strategies and interventions once someone's diagnosed.
The Autism Project, it's not related per se to Autism Speaks. What are the differences, aside from them being a national organization?
They've got much nicer offices than we do, I can tell you that.
Right, that's number one right
That's
there.
number one.
Probably have a bit of a bigger staff too, right?
That's a big one, yes. We were here first. We've been around for a while, and we're local. We're on the ground. They are at the national level. They're doing the national advocacy down in D.C. and statewide, trying to get autism mandates so we can get some commercial coverage for the treatment for individuals with autism covered by our commercial insurances, which do not do their fair share right now.
I wanted to ask you about that, especially with healthcare reform going on. Could you speak on that a little bit?
We probably it's about 3 or 4 years ago, we got a mandate in Rhode Island, and it mandated for the commercial insurances to cover autism treatment, specifically applied behavioral analysis, which is a very intensive intervention for some of the younger children. Some people have it 40 hours a week for several years. It has very good results. But it had a cap on it, only a certain amount of money, and it only went up to 15 years of age.
So after that, you were kind of on your own, or you had to find some other way to pay for it? Yeah.
Although we do have Rhode Island does have a good Medicaid program for individuals who meet a certain level of criteria, and that is you will be institutionalized or hospitalization level of care should you not receive some supports at home. And that's gone down. It used to be close to 1,700 people who were on that, and now it's closer to 1,000 to 1,100 people. So that opportunity has gone down.
Is that also based on the level of the individual's
It's
autism?
absolutely based
Yeah.
on the level.
Okay.
That's all it's based on is the person's functioning level. So, and out of that, after that, there's no other resources. And our kids are expensive. It's very time intensive, and the level of person working with them has a lot of letters after their names, and they're very expensive. As you know, they have master's level, and the commercial insurance has been very slow to support it. Speech and language is very challenging to get that funded. It's a communication disorder. It's like saying to a diabetic, sorry, we're not going to do the insulin. So speech and language is one of the key interventions for our kids.
Earlier, I talked about how teachers handle it when they begin to get more in their class, and you touched on families and what they go through and and how they work with their loved ones every day. Talk about that aspect of it and how it affects families.
I don't want to be Debbie Downer because we love our kids, and I was at the project yesterday, and we have a leadership team group that has about 10 or 12 kids with what used to the artist previously known as Asperger's, and they're some of the best kids I've ever met. And so I'm very sensitive to saying we want to cure or change things. Really, the cure we're looking for some of our kids who are diagnosed with autism, who are nonverbal and who have some really physical challenges too, the gastro challenges, the migraines, the headaches, the neurological. We need a cure for those kids. We need to find out how to help them so they can communicate. And it's very challenging for the kids. It's very challenging for the families to watch their child regress, watch their child not be able to keep up with the siblings or the others. But it's also exhausting because as a mama bear or a papa bear, you're out there trying to do everything you possibly can for your child, and it's very hard to figure out. That's one of the reasons why the parent end of the Autism Project evolved too, because we used to get all our information in the waiting room. And we said, this is ridiculous. We need to have one central clearinghouse where we can tell parents the options out there, and they can make the decisions as to what kind of interventions they want to go. Because it's isolating too. You can't bring your children out to the restaurants. Or I watched my other sons play Little League from the car, down the hill with binoculars. I watched my son playing baseball because I couldn't open the door. I'd lose his brother. He was a runner back then. So we try to do support. We try to bring them together to realize they're not in it alone, and that there is hope. There's a lot of hope out there. There are a lot of people going through this too. So, and for the siblings, there's a lot of other siblings who have brothers or sisters who may not act what's socially, appropriate. It's helpful when you go in and you tell your story and people are shaking their head, yep, and and my grandson did this. We also do a lot of work with grandparents. It's important for them to know that there's a place to go for some help.
Would you say that the reason you're involved is because of a personal? Most people have a vested interest because something happened in their life, whether it's a child or some other family member or somebody close to them in life, and it really kicks up your interest and your level of wanting to learn and follow along and study. Was that the case with you?
Yes, I have a son who's going to be 19 in 2 weeks, and it was his teachers when he was originally diagnosed when he was 4 that started the project. They were the ones who were saying, what's going on? We got to figure this out. And I was lucky to live in the town where they were. And so I was brought on as the family voice in some of the early trainings, and then it evolved because there's so many people out there. I mean, we're going to have our walk on April 27th, and there are going to be 8,000 people in Goddard Park. That's a lot of people for a walk. It's the largest one in the state right now, and it's because there's so many people with autism or who know people with autism, and we are very lucky to have a community that is so supportive, that wants to help the individuals and wants to help the families and the teachers and the doctors and the therapists. There's so many people involved in our children's lives and our lives as a family. So it's very good to have an organization that can be out there to support them too.
If you end up watching this show after the date of the walk, going to the website, I'm sure there's a list of other events that are coming up that if they want to get involved with fundraiser type things, or maybe just to learn more, to volunteer, the website will have that for you. But let's talk about the walk and what it involves, what people are doing. Can people still either make some kind of a charitable donation or maybe even volunteer in some way for the walk?
Absolutely. We take over Goddard Park on Sunday the 27th, and it's also a family fun day. From the very beginning, we wanted our walk to have a heart where people could stay after, meet other people, network, if you will, but just get to know other people. And so we have a ton of activities that we originally said were autism friendly, but now when there's 8,000 people there. But we don't have a lot of noise. We keep things pretty predictable for the kids as to what's going to be going on. So they can absolutely come down, make a charitable donation before, during, or after the walk. That's fine. Volunteering, go through the website because we.
Are you still looking for people?
We will never say no to a volunteer.
I've never heard someone say no.
No, my volunteer coordinator for the walk does a wonderful job. Everybody has a job going into the walk. They know what they're going to do. They feel value because they know exactly what they're going to do. They're not just walking around saying, "Is there something I can do for you?" So we appreciate it if they call ahead of time because we really want them to know what they're doing before they go in, so they feel like they're a part of the team.
Is it a rain or shine event?
Yes.
Yeah. But you're keeping your fingers crossed and knocking on wood, right?
There goes the anxiety. No, it's going to be sunny this year. We had one
That's right, you
torrential
say
down.
it's going to be sunny.
Only one torrential downpour, and people still come out.
That's fantastic. Well, they're,
Absolutely.
baby strollers, dogs on leashes, all that?
No dogs.
No dogs?
No, you know what? Dogs are unpredictable, and we had an incident a couple years ago, and it's too unpredictable for the kids. Everybody says their dog is wonderful. I have a puppy, and she's wonderful, but when you bring it to a park with 8,000 people, it's not the best mix.
Yeah, it's a lot of energy going on there.
A lot of energy.
There's other ways that you generate some revenue, and that would be like selling license plates, and that's a new thing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The General Assembly voted that we would have a Rhode Island Autism Awareness license plate. We launched it on Monday. It's beautiful. It's the wave with all beautiful browns and tan and blue puzzle pieces throughout, so it doesn't scream at you, but it makes you look. And because we're part of the state, we want to be part of the wave. So we started that. We have to pre-sell 900 of them. All the information's on our website. And as soon as we have the 900th pre-registration, we send it over to the DMV, and they just take it over from there going forward.
And we put a picture of it up on our up while we're talking here on the show too, so people will be able to check it out.
Great.
People, it's a big event. You said 8,000 or so people. Are people coming over like from Connecticut? Because we're on in Connecticut too, and maybe coming from Massachusetts and stuff like that.
We do. We're a small organization. We keep saying we're the little train that could.
That's a lot of numbers that are showing up.
It's a lot of numbers, and we also do a lot of programming. We probably work with between 6,000 and 7,000 people a year, and we have about 300 kids come through our programs. One of our biggest things is training. We do a lot of training in schools for the professionals so they can support our kids and educate them in the public schools. And we do a lot of consultation to schools. And we have done some training and consultations in Connecticut, in southeastern Mass. And we do have kids from there who also come to our summer program, which is a summer camp, Camp Wanna Go Again. And that is the last week of July, first week of August. And we have somebody who drives up every year, twice a day from Stonington, so her kids can come to our summer camp. They come back every year, and we look forward to it.
How often are you up at the state capitol chatting with lawmakers and maybe, requesting funds or just kind of educating the lawmakers on what's going on? As executive director, is that part of your duties?
It is,
Yeah.
and probably not enough. I am on the Governor's Commission to study autism, and this year up there, what we're working on is looking into the transition years and into the adult years. But we have some big champions up there. We got the license plate because of Senator Adam Satchel. We have the commission because of Representative Peter Palumbo and Senator O'Neill. And I do get up there as much as I can. I also work a lot in the community with the United Way, Special Olympics, the Rhode Island Foundation, trying to get the word out as to what autism really is, what a family member's experience really is. We also have a leadership team and expert panel, and that is teenagers who we bring to schools, and we usually have between 2 and 4 of the teens on a panel for teachers and parents and other people who want to listen to ask questions, and they get the best reviews of anything we ever do. They did it at our National Speaker Conference last year. I'm trying to see how we can get them in front of the State House for them to hear what some of their needs are, because they teach us so much every day, because they can speak for their brethren who can't. And they know what it's like, and they can really identify what is sensory, what is bothering me. We can say it all day long from what we learn and what we view, but from the inside their heart and their minds, they teach us so much every day.
We're going to take one more quick break and be right back. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. That is our show today. We're with Joanne Quinn, the Executive Director of the Autism Project. You want to give out the website one more time?
Sure, it's www.theautismproject.org.
Lots of stuff on there. We talked about volunteering, learning more about it, getting involved. I'm sure there's social media links on there as well.
Social media, all our programs for kids, adults, grandparents, and teachers, professionals.
You can see this show and many others on our YouTube sites. Until next time, I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Take care.